$949.94. Airline credit card in the amount of $3,513.99 for a total of $2,207,070.62.
And I will second that motion. Questions on the bills?
I had one, and I think on page 4 of 14, the one for Bornhoff, second from the bottom, is that just a comma mess up, or is that's a big old check going out?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's
Okay.
a massive.
So that's a $1,319,000 check. Okay.
Yes,
And
Mr.
that's the
Chairman.
Riverton water supply.
Correct. It's for the pumping facilities that were installed at the end of October.
I figured either the program didn't have enough commas to make that possible, but it sure stuck out as being a little weird. So that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I didn't have any further questions. That was the only other thing that I had, is usually that amount, to Bornhoff at 1.3 million's the total we usually have for a finance meeting.
Right.
So there's a lot of funding going out for that. So I don't have any other questions. So all those in favor of the approval of claims say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Is there any other business for us, Mr. Weaver, this evening?
No more business. Thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Councilman Smith, please lead us in the pledge.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Eric Heiser.
Here.
Councilwoman Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present.
Councilman John Lars Baker.
Here.
Councilman Rich Guard.
Here.
Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Mayor Ron Warpness.
I am present. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Fabian from tonight's meeting.
Your Honor, I'd make the motion to do that. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. I declare that we have a quorum this evening. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Your Honor, I would make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We have communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given an opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone that would like to address the council at this time? Okay, agenda item number 7, consent agenda. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes December 3rd, 2013 regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes December 10th, 2013 council work session. Approval of the minutes December 17, 2013 Finance Committee meeting. Approval of Finance Committee recommendations for December 17, 2013. Approval of municipal court report for the month of November 2013. And ordinance number 13-001, second reading, door-to-door solicitation. And I'd like to read that by title only now to stay in compliance with statutes. Proposed ordinance number 13-011, an ordinance amending Title V Business Licenses and Regulations of the Riverton Municipal Code for the City of Riverton, adding Chapter 5.28, door-to-door solicitation, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes.
it's the recommendation of the Finance Committee for the approval of claims to be paid in the amount of $1,747,606.69. Checks written for payroll liabilities for December 13, 2013 in the amount of $455,949.94. Elan credit card in the amount of $3,513.99 for a total of $2,207,070.62.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I'd like to remove, let's see, the right way to say that would be, I move that we pass the consent agenda, but remove the discussion on ordinance number 13-011, second reading, and place that on the agenda below item 10.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to move the agenda item number F to between agenda item 10 and 11 and we have a second on that. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and now we would entertain a motion for the remaining consent agenda. I think we need a motion too.
No, it was in that.
Yeah, just
Oh, it wasn't
I
amended?
move to approve consent if we removed,
Oh, okay, all right.
and remove 13-111 at the same
Okay.
time.
I was thinking that it
think
was amendment to that motion, and so,
I put it all,
All right.
I'll put it all together.
okay, sounds good. Agenda item number 8, fiscal year 12-13 audit report, city clerk's report.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe Kristen is getting the auditors on the phone now. We were trying to try Skype tonight, but evidently we're having some problems with our other presentations tonight, so it's affecting our sound system. And so she's getting Mr. Chalker and Mrs. Hagerman on the phone right now. Abby Hagerman was our head auditor this year. I think they like to change every 3 years. So as usual with Mater Chalker and Peterson, it's always a learning moment for us and teaching moment for them. So we had a really good experience this year with the audit, and I'll defer it to Dennis and Abby. And hanging up on auditors doesn't give us any points.
Not a good sign, yeah.
Go ahead and tell them to start. Dennis,
Yes,
are you with us?
I am.
Okay, you're live in the council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Courtney, I have with me Abby Hagerman, was one of our managers and who's actually in the field, as you know her. So she's here. If we have any questions, she can help answer those questions. So can you hear me okay, Courtney?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. First off, to the council, I'd like to express our thanks to Courtney and Gloria for all their help and their staff for making the audit fairly smooth on our end anyway. The records are, accounting records are very easy to follow. You have a good audit trail. All your employees that we deal with are very knowledgeable. They're assigned areas, and it just helps our audit go along very smoothly, which allows us to get in and get out without too much interruption of your staff, so we appreciate that. The purpose of an audit, two things. One is to give an opinion as to whether or not your financial statements are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And on pages 1, 2, and 3 is the auditor's report. That is an unmodified opinion. It looks a little different than it did last year, but it is an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. It's the best you can have. Basically says that your financial statements are being prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and there are no material misstatements. The second purpose of an audit is to look at and test, not necessarily test, but evaluate the internal controls that are in place to make sure that no one person can take a transaction from start to finish. And there's a report in there that discusses the internal control and that we noted no material weaknesses in internal control. That report also talks about compliance with state and local law, grant requirements, grant compliance, and we noted no instances of non-compliance with grants or state and local law. So again, that report is a clean opinion. It's the best you can have. So it's a very positive reflection, not only on the council, but on your staff as well. Just a couple things in the financial statements. There's the management discussion and analysis, which is kind of a narrative form. It kind of talks about the financial position of the city, its accomplishments during the year, challenges and things like that. If the council members haven't read that, I would encourage you to read that. The staff spend a lot of time putting that information together, and sometimes it's easier to understand in narrative form rather than try to digest some of this financial information. So again, that's on pages 4 through 13. If we look on page 44, this is for the general fund. This is your comparison of your actual expenditures and revenues to budget, to your budget, your final budgeted numbers. And you can see in the lower part of page 44 that there were no departments that were overexpended on their budget. And again, that's a good reflection on your department heads and your staff. They're doing a great job of staying within their budgets and monitoring their budgets. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, we don't make many journal entries. So you as council members, when you receive financial information from your accounting staff, it can be relied on to make management decisions, because like I say, we do not make many journal entries. So the numbers you see are pretty much the numbers you see on a monthly basis are pretty much these same numbers you're looking at in these audited financial statements, just in a little different format. So Courtney, that's all. I mean, I can go in a little more detail. I know the council probably has a full agenda. I don't need to sit here and read all the numbers to them, but if there were any questions of the council, Abby and I would certainly try to answer those questions.
Okay. Does the council have any questions at this time? Doesn't appear to be any questions. I'd first of all like to thank you for taking time this evening. I'm sorry that our Skype system didn't work. We were looking forward to trying that out on you this evening, and we apologize for not being able to make that work. But
we were kind of excited to try it ourselves.
Yes.
Maybe another time.
We hope so. We'll continue to work on it. One of these days, we'll get it just right. So, but the thing that I heard in your presentation, a couple times you mentioned it's your statement of the best you can have, and I can tell you as a mayor that kind of statement regarding our audit report is a breath of fresh air. It really is. It's good to hear those words, and kind of like that, I'm sure the council feels exactly the same way. I know when you and Abby and your crew were up here, why everyone is very nervous about getting all the information and things to you, and so we're just delighted that it worked out well. So
yes, yeah, it's a good report.
Yeah. Any council have any comments or anything they would like to make at this time? Yes.
Well, Your Honor, I would just
Councilman Baker.
like to comment that I'm thrilled with this audit. When I came on the council 7 years ago, we didn't have a good audit like this. We had qualified audits, and we had some real challenges. And so I'm grateful that the staff has been able to work through this and get us set up so that we've got good span of control on everything, that we've got separation of duties to the point where the auditors like what they look at, and I'm glad that all the numbers work out to the good. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would echo that. I think obviously Lars and I were both on during the days when things weren't as bright and shiny as they are today, and as much as sometimes I don't want to hear what Courtney has to say, it's very important that we have someone that watches the books like a hawk. I won't use the nickname that we call her. That's not for public hearing, but she's terrific. Gloria as her sidekick is wonderful as well. So I would just pass along my kudos as well to Courtney and Gloria and the rest of the staff. it's pretty easy to not have questions when you know that things are going as well as they possibly can. So, thank you, Courtney.
Yeah, and sometimes the decisions that have to be made by the accounting personnel are not popular decisions, but they are, I can assure you, they are trying to do what's right, not only from an audit standpoint, but also with compliance with IRS reporting standards. Even though you're a municipality, you still have to comply with IRS standards relating to payroll, reimbursements, and things like that. So they do a great job of making sure you're in compliance in those areas as well. And sometimes they're not great or popular decisions, but they are doing what is right and what should be done from an accounting standpoint.
Yes, I think each of the council members has ideas of what they would like to do and accomplish and whatnot, and then they're brought back to reality with the budget, and then with Courtney oversighting that, why it helps keep us all, you know, our heads are in the clouds, but keep our feet on the ground as well. So that's really important, and you're just confirming that we're going in the right direction and living within the rules and the guidelines and whatnot, so that our community can rest assured that our community is solvent and everything is moving forward. So thank you very much for that report.
Okay, thank you. Certainly, Abby and I are always available for any council member. If they ever have questions, you're more than welcome to call us at any time. We do have a lot of conversation with Gloria and Courtney throughout the year, which kind of helps us keep up with what you have going on there in Riverton, and it helps them work through some accounting issues so we don't have surprises at the end of the year. So it works out well. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much again.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Okay. That was a positive note. And congratulations again, Courtney. That's a very high praise for your department. It really is. Okay. Agenda item number 9, Parks and Trails Master Plan Committee. Or do we need to accept I guess we need to. Chair would entertain a motion to accept the fiscal year 12-13 audit report.
Your Honor, I move that we accept the fiscal year audit report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Agenda item number 9, Parks and Trails Master Plan Committee appointments. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. On October 4th, 2013, the council approved staff to start advertising for the Park Master Plan Committee. Staff advertised in a variety of different modes besides the newspaper. Over the past several months, letters of interest have been coming in slowly. We've had to really pump that up and try to get people to apply. The mayor has submitted the following names for committee members for the Park Master Plan: Tara Thomas Carr, George Wright, Craig Blumenshine, Matt Wright, Mike Martin, and Kyle Nikoloff. One thing I would like to bring up, and typically in committees we like to have odd numbers so when they vote we don't have any ties and avoid confusion like that. I don't know if it's that critical in a committee like this, because everything they bring forward will have to come in front of the council to be approved anyways, so I'm not really critical with that. But I guess if there was someone else out there interested in being on this, and I think it can be a fluid committee in the fact of we can start off with this. If someone else wants to jump on board, I think there wouldn't be any problem with that. So the recommendation is to approve these committee members to the Park Master Plan Committee.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion regarding the Master Plan Committee appointments.
Your Honor, I'd make the motion to approve the people that were listed in that proposal.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Okay, agenda item number 10, Airport Air Service Future, presentation by Nick Wangler, founder of Forecast Incorporated. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Paul.
You're supposed to sing.
Intermission.
I'm sorry. Are you supposed to sing while they're doing this?
No, that would be a real foo-fa. But you can if you like.
You're good. He's not got to be back. Doesn't have to come back and face anybody. Not the pointer again.
Oh, speak in the microphone.
Nick Wrangler, I've asked to do a presentation to the airport board. We thought it was important also to invite him to do it to the city council also, so that our public can kind of be aware of what's going on with the future of aviation in not only Riverton, but Wyoming in general. And he's going to do a little PowerPoint presentation here and kind of show us what our other options are. And we have a lot of, disgruntled public right now with the Great Lakes, but there are other alternatives, but they do come with a cost, and that's kind of the gist of tonight. You'll be able to see that.
Okay.
So Nick, it's all
There's
yours.
a pointer if you would like to help if there's any issues that come up that.
Paul, if I may ask, is it just members of the city council and the airport board? Paul?
Yes, Nick.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is it just members of the Riverton City Council and the airport board are listening in?
Yes, Nick.
Okay, and everybody can see my screen?
And we also are broadcasting it to the public on television.
Okay, perfect. And Paul, Sherry Taylor should also be on the line. Sherry started on Monday, just yesterday, with State Aeronautics. She is the Air Service Development Manager, and she will be taking over Amber's position. So, as I go through this, if there are questions that anybody has, if somebody can just kind of interrupt, and I'll be happy to answer the questions as we go along. This is a presentation that was given, by and large, the same as what was given here just this past week in Casper to a similar group with the state. It was a joint minerals group of the state legislature. But anyway, I will, without further ado, I will go through this, and really what we want to touch on is really going through this in three parts. One, giving everybody just a quick background of what's going on in the airline industry today. Talk a little bit about how Wyoming has fared since the inception of the Air Service Enhancement Program in 2004. And then lastly, just talk about some of the future challenges that we see coming down the path in the near future for the state. So, each of these issues I will touch on as I go through this presentation, and I won't read them to you, so I'll let you guys go ahead and take a look at them. But all of these are not only key to sort of historically what's caused some of the changes in the state, but are also things that we're looking at, in terms of the future. And throughout the course of me going through these slides, I will touch on all of these points. And again, if anybody has questions as we go, just feel free to interrupt. The first thing I want to talk about is what's happening in general with domestic capacity today in the industry. This slide is simply looking at a depiction of what's happened across the U.S. since 2004. most of the slides in here will reference 2004, and we're doing that by design, simply to provide a benchmark for what the rest of the industry has seen since the inception of Wyoming's Air Service Enhancement Program. But really what we're looking at is, since that time now, in the last 10 years, we've seen a number of flights decrease in the U.S. domestic market by 17%, and we've seen the total capacity drop by 11%. We do expect that to continue. A lot of that is related to the mergers, which just this past Monday, the Department of Justice approved the merger between American and U.S. Airways, which, as we go through the slides here in a second, you'll see what some of the impacts that certainly may have on the state. Talking specifically about what the airlines have done pre and post merger, there's really four of them I want to touch on, and I'm choosing to show United and Continental first. Prior to their merger, and again going back to 2004, the number of domestic routes they operated in the U.S., there were 652 of them. The routes in 2003, they are the only merged airline that is actually flying more routes today than they did prior to their merger. However, their overall capacity is still down. Now, what's happened is it's down by and large because of frequency. So, markets that had 5 flights a day in the past may only have 3 flights a day today. So we're seeing an overall decrease in capacity. U.S. Airways and America West, similar story. They went from 500 plus routes back in 2004 to today just slightly over 300. Again, down 16%. Northwest and Delta have also dropped upwards of a couple hundred routes. Their domestic capacity is down 27. And looking specifically at one of Delta's, what was prior to the merger, one of Delta's hubs, back in August of 2003, Cincinnati enjoyed nonstop service to 125 cities. There were just shy of 559 flights a day, 42,000 seats. Fast forward to this past summer, Cincinnati dropped from 125 to 42 nonstop destinations, and the number of daily departures Delta and its partners offered dropped down to 99. So significant decrease in Cincinnati. And as I said to the previous groups that we've given, I could spend the next hour just simply showing you slides and maps of who's been hit hardest by these decreases. It's been felt really across the industry. American and TWA merged in 2001. And again, similar story, domestic routes are down significantly, as is capacity. What's interesting to note, if you look at TWA back 10, 12 years ago was a very large global airline servicing, obviously lots of markets in the U.S., Mexico, the Caribbean, Europe. They were in the Middle East. They were really all over the place. If you look at the structure today of what is left from their merger with TWA, you're left with the picture up now in July of what continues to operate. If you slice that a little bit further and simply look at what was TWA flying prior to the merger that American kept, you're down to 10 routes. So significant cuts. And again, similar to Cincinnati, St. Louis was cut a little bit harder. TWA at the time prior to the merger offered 331 flights a day from St. Louis. This past summer, that number dropped to 26. American now offers 6 nonstop destinations out of St. Louis. I think only with the exception of Los Angeles, they were serving all of those prior to their merger with TWA. Now, the point that I want to make with this is, with the merger that just occurred between American and U.S. Airways, it is certainly not a stretch of the imagination to assume this is going to occur again and will continue to occur. U.S. Airways primarily has hubs in Philadelphia, Charlotte, and in Phoenix, where American has hubs in Chicago, Dallas, and Miami, and kind of to a lesser extent, Los Angeles and New York. So you will definitely see some changes in these hubs. And really the reason this is important and why this affects Wyoming, The city of Riverton has been somewhat isolated from this thus far, but some of the other communities that have worked on either improving their air service or have lost carriers go away. The challenge that we see statewide is that instead of 10 years ago, when you could have called, you could have called a couple guys to give you service to Minneapolis. Today, you're really limited to simply Delta. Over time, the services that we desire are becoming harder and harder to simply attain, just because there's less carriers out there. Since 2004, the number of airlines that are flying in the U.S. today are less than half of what they were prior to the inception of the Air Service Enhancement Program. I told you a little while ago what capacity is kind of doing on a nationwide basis. If you go back to 2004 and sort of call that the beginning of when we measured this and where Wyoming is at, as you can see on the slide, the U.S. average is down 11%. Wyoming through 2013, our capacity right now is 24% better than what it was prior to the inception of this program. So we feel that we've been highly successful in attracting new carriers and retaining the communities. Gillette, Rock Springs, Cody, Jackson. Everybody, most airports in the state, I think, with a couple of exceptions, I think Riverton, Sheridan, and Moreland, have in some way, shape, or form worked with this Air Service Enhancement Program. And in fact, Paul, I think your predecessor, Bill, I think Riverton actually participated in the program way back in its inception in 2004, doing some work with Great Lakes. If you look at domestic capacity on a state-by-state basis, again, you see the U.S. average there in the middle of the screen down, just slightly over 11%. Wyoming is second only to North Dakota in overall growth since that time. Again, the state has fared very well in terms of what our capacity has done. I think we're one of only 7 states in the last 7 years, or the last 10 years, have actually had an increase in capacity. I spoke to this a second ago, and really why this is important. The slide you're looking at is how many airlines does it take to make up 90% of the domestic market? Back in 1995, and the only reason we selected 95 is the data we have allowed us to pull it back that far. In 1995, there were 14 airlines that made up 90% of the U.S. market. Fast forward to when this program started in 2004, there were 12. If you look at where we are at today, closing out 2013, there's really 5 airlines that make up 90% of the U.S. marketplace. I have a number by JetBlue of 89.2. This slide was created a little while ago, and my hunch is if we were to update it today, you'd see that the top 5 guys now make up 90% of the market. And if you think about that, it's really profound that 5 airlines in the United States control 90% of the market. It's astonishing. The other thing that's interesting to note is if you look at all of the airlines, either under 1995 or the 2004 column, there is not one airline on that list that hasn't either merged, gone into bankruptcy, or gone out of business entirely. So, we are constantly dealing with a very, very dynamic industry of constant change, and that's not going to stop. We know it's happening, we know it's coming, we know it's going to continue, and it's just a matter of recognizing it, embracing it, and doing what we can to ensure that Wyoming isn't left in the dark with all these mergers and acquisitions that everybody's going through. This is simply a map depicting communities that have lost service since 2008. I believe there are 31 communities on this map. As we've said to many groups in the past, we can sit down with you every single year and show you this map, and what you're going to see is this map growing significantly. What you're going to see are communities that are not protected by the Essential Air Service Program, that are close to a hub. And I'll give you an example. The potential for Riverton to be that is simply there. I mean, you're close enough to Casper where The way the airlines have sort of viewed the industry is if I'm flying to two airports within 100 miles of each other, what happens if I stop flying to one and focus everything into the other? And that's really kind of what we're seeing in a lot of cases where some of these smaller communities, smaller airports are slowly starting to lose air service. And the challenge that we have, and this is actually a challenge that's been kind of thrown at us by one of the airlines we work with the most in the state, SkyWest, is a lot of times if we lose something in the state, the odds of getting it back are slim, because SkyWest basically has a couple options, or any of our airline partners. They can either redeploy those assets elsewhere, or in the case in many of the markets in Wyoming, the airplanes that are being flown, if they're not deployed somewhere else, they simply get rid of them. The Brasilia in the not too distant past was an airplane type that SkyWest had indicated long term was not necessarily going to be part of their fleet plans. So the real reality and risk is if we lose some of the services, the airplane simply may not be there to get it back. We decide later that we made a mistake and we want to go ahead and bring that back. Oil and what it's done to the industry. Again, I just showed a couple of different points in time on the lower graph, and looking at 95 through 2000, looking at 2001 through 06, and then really through 2007 through 2012. If you look at what's happening, oil is really driving a lot of the changes in the environment. One of the slides that I'll show you towards the end just talks about the changes in costs that we're seeing, not only with the price of oil and the price of fuel for the airlines, but also in the cost of operating equipment that we have flying around the state. The industry in and of itself, for a very, very long time, had historically been growing. If you look at the fluctuation that really started in 2003, 2004, certainly in 2005 with oil, the airline industry lagged a couple of years of the price of oil. Everybody chose to try and ignore it. There were a lot of people that did fuel hedging, all those kinds of things. But really, the industry now is, okay, $3 plus oil or $3 plus fuel is here to stay, and we've got to deal with that. I will talk about some of the other implications that we see with fuel in the state in just a couple of slides that talk specifically about the aircraft types and what we're seeing. If you look at United Airlines' schedule, everything United Airlines flew in 2003, and again, this is the year prior to the Air Service Enhancement program, and you assign a cost to their fuel. They paid 94 cents a gallon for fuel. Their fuel bill in 2003 was just over $2 billion, just shy of $2.1 billion. If you take their same schedule in 2003 and simply apply their fuel cost in their third quarter of 2013, that number was $3.12 a gallon. Their fuel bill escalates with that same schedule up to just shy of $6.9 billion. United has seen $4.8 billion increase in cost in nothing other than fuel. The implications that we see and that we're seeing in the state, and really what the industry is seeing overall, is you're seeing a few things happen. One, you're seeing capacity being cut. Capacity is being cut, again, in markets that have multiple frequencies. You'll see a market going from 5 to 3. You will see airfares rising. We are seeing the introduction of lots of ancillary revenue fees, checking a bag, buying your seat where you actually want to physically sit on the airplane. A lot of those kinds of things, those are all intended to really combat what's happening with the price of oil, because it's not going to go down. It's not going to go down, in the foreseeable future that the industry has seen at this point. And the ancillary component, and again, the airfares and the cut to capacity are how the industry has combat this thus far. Here's where I kind of want to pause and really make a point, and make a point about Wyoming's Air Service Enhancement program. The program was designed in 2003 and became law in 2004. It was virtually impossible for anybody to have said We believe the industry is going to become much more turbulent than it's been. We believe fuel is going to go north of $3. There's all kinds of things that have happened that were not foreseen when this program started. And really why that's an important fact is as we talk about the success of the Air Service Enhancement Program, we've been successful in spite of the fact that we have had all these different things thrown at us and increased costs and less airlines to deal with and just all kinds of challenges. And there's really no way of predicting it, because if you were to stand on the imaginary path, if you will, from 2004 and turn around and look behind you, the kinds of things you would have seen lots of new entrant airlines starting in the industry, a lot of bankruptcies. That's always been present. You would have seen oil that was always less than $1 a gallon. You would have seen a fairly stable cost environment. You would have seen a fairly robust environment of growth, a fairly robust environment of new entrants. And now if you were to do a 180 and turn around on that same path and look forward, all of that's completely changed. And again, it's been virtually impossible really to predict that. So what does all of this doom and gloom mean for Wyoming? If you look at how Wyoming has fared during this point in time, prior to the inception of the program, Wyoming's passenger traffic was down 2%. During that same point in time, domestic traffic in the U.S. was up 8%. If you fast forward to today, what Wyoming has enjoyed passenger traffic that's up 36%, while domestic traffic has actually gone up about the same amount that it did for the time period prior to the Air Service Enhancement Program. Wyoming has grown terrifically in terms of what passenger traffic has done. What is not on here is 2013. We're still a couple of weeks shy of finishing that. 2013 should be the best the state has ever done on history. 2008 thus far is our banner year. We did 1,032,000. This year we're on track to do north of 1,040,000. So we're pretty happy that we continue to see the growth and continue to see the positive effects of the program. The way that we have really kind of measured the success of this is everything that we've done, we've baselined as 2003. So what you're seeing here is since 2004, the state has seen roughly 2 million new passenger segments in and out of our state. Based on what we know, that equates to about 667,000 passengers that have flown into Wyoming that otherwise would not. And what that really equates to from an economic impact standpoint, the State Aeronautics Group conducted a study in 2008, completed it in 2009. So we're using numbers based off of that study. But basically what we're seeing statewide through 2012, we're seeing an economic impact from this program by the increase in passenger traffic, the increase of visitation, all that kind of stuff, of about $259 million. So we believe that it's been highly successful and continue to track and monitor this stuff. If you actually read the law, read the language talking about the Air Service Enhancement Program, one of the key foundations of that language is that we're working to reduce leakage or increase passenger retention in communities. What that really means is there's a few things we go after. We're looking at airlines and trying to find ways to help them improve their reliability. We're working with airlines in improving their schedule, improving their affordability. And what this slide is showing here is really some improvement in the affordability of flying from Wyoming. Back in, I've noted 2004 here. What you see is a rise in prices. That started back a couple of years before this program even began. What we did with this program back in 2007, 2008 is we went to the airlines that were flying in the state, and we talked to them about pricing. We talked to them our concerns about how expensive it's becoming to fly in the state. Long story short, those conversations were successful in that the airline partners such as United and Delta and American went through, evaluated what they were doing, and really went ahead and gave us a shot at lowering some fares. And what we've seen for the last several years now is the benefit of that. Things are starting to creep up again. We do see that. We do realize it. We're working on it and doing our best to ensure that doesn't happen. But from a pricing standpoint, things have really become a lot more affordable than where they've been. And again, this is something that through this program we've had the opportunity and the time to really work on. Jumping back to the traffic just for a second, this graphic is updated to include November. So what you're looking at is statewide passenger traffic through November. Statewide, we're up 5%. Sorry, I just now see that it says through July, but this actually does represent through November. Laramie is the big eye catch on this one. Laramie traffic through November is up 78%. And really the biggest driving factor that we've seen is a couple of things. Last summer, summer of 2012, Laramie's Essential Air Service came up for bid, and SkyWest threw their name in the hat and ultimately won it. So November of 2012, SkyWest actually took over the market in Laramie. And at the same time, with SkyWest taking the market over and the way their relationship is set up with United, gave us an opportunity to go into United and ask them to set fares in Laramie and common rate them to what Denver's was or what Denver's are. And really what that means is to go through and ensure that what's being paid in Laramie is not going to be that much more expensive than what's being paid in Denver. So we've seen some terrific success in the case of Laramie and its air service improvements by nothing other than switching essential air service providers. There are 3 communities on here that this year are down in passenger traffic. Cheyenne is down because in 2012 they had American service to Dallas that went away. Rock Springs and Gillette are both down, and they're down simply because what happened back in May is SkyWest dropped one of 3 flights to Denver. They had they actually had to go through and paint their fleet of Brasilias. United asked that they get that done because they were flying some of the Brasilias around and some old paint schemes. They basically had to pull some flying out, and Gillette and Rock Springs because of that lost a flight. So otherwise, what we're seeing statewide traffic for pretty much everybody else is showing some nice growth again this year. Airfare slide that I showed a second ago, if you go back to the year ending the fourth quarter of 2007, and we sort of picked that point in time, because that's really prior to when we realized it was as big of an issue as it was and started doing something about it. Wyoming's fares as a percent of domestic fares, both with and without Jackson, we were paying about 43% more than what was being paid domestically. So if the way the math of this works is if somebody's flying out of Denver and they were paying $100, that same person flying out of Wyoming was paying $143. If you fast forward to the end of last year, Wyoming's fares they're still high, but they've come down. Wyoming's fares were now 33% 33% higher than domestic average. And if you pull Jackson out of that, we've gone from 43 down to 22. So during this time period, what we've seen domestically is airfares across the board have gone up 20%. Wyoming's fares have gone up only 12%, and if you look at Wyoming without Jackson, our fares have only climbed 2%. And again, we're towards the front of the pack in terms of improvements, if you will, or slowing down the cost of the price of flying from Wyoming. Now, that's not to say that we're cheap to fly from. It's simply to say that that we really worked on this, and we know that it's been an issue, and we really think we've come a long way in light of really what's happened with everybody else. Passenger retention. This is the leakage stuff that I talked about a minute ago. That the Air Service Enhancement Program is really out to fix. We really want to improve passenger retention in the state. As a state, we are still losing about 1 million passengers every year. if you think about the fact that in 2013 we will fly just over 1 million passengers, there's another 1 million that we know of that live within the state of Wyoming who every morning to wake up and buy tickets and are choosing to fly out of other airports. And what's happening is by and large, the airports are flying out of our Denver. 70% of everybody who leaves out of our state to fly for business or leisure is going out of Denver. The remaining 30% is divided up between Salt Lake, Billings, and Rapid City. I don't remember the exact number for Riverton, but I want to say that you guys are somewhere in the retention is somewhere in the 40% range. So every 4 out of every tickets that are sold in Riverton are actually using your airport. The other 6 are going elsewhere, and predominantly, again, they're going to Denver. You do see some folks going to Casper, but by and large, the folks that aren't flying out of Riverton are again using Denver. The last piece is future challenges for the state. I show this and everybody goes, holy cow, does he expect us to read this? No, I don't. What I want to show you is this is the language pulled from Delta's pilot contract that was signed last September, September 2012. And really what the contract says is Delta today has 342, I believe, 348, I forget the exact number, 340 some 50-seat RJs flying in the Delta system, whether they are CRJ 200s or ERJ 145s. There's an excess of 300 of them. Delta's pilot contract is basically forcing Delta to park this capacity as it's being replaced with larger aircraft. So what's going to happen over the course of the next 5 years, there's going to be 223 50-seat RJs that are going to get parked. So Delta is going to go down to simply flying around 125 of these. This is another risk that we face in the state. Not only is this going to happen with Delta, but we believe it's going to happen with United, and we believe it's going to happen with American as they work through these agreements. And what's happening is, somebody in the past has asked, well, why did Delta's pilots want to do this? Well, they want to do it because pay scales. If they're flying a bigger airplane, they're simply getting paid more. So if they can force the industry to park 50-seaters, then from that perspective, then they end up being better off. So what does that mean for us? What that means is communities, and maybe Casper as an example, where today they have 3 flights a day to Denver. What you may see in the future is that capacity shrinking, going from 3 a day on 50 seats to perhaps only 2 a day on a larger airplane, but you're losing frequency and you ultimately end up losing capacity. So all the way down the line, looking at, I know Riverton generally has either the 1900s or the Brasilias. Gillette is another case in point where Gillette has 2 flights a day on 30 seats. So to Denver, so either they graduate into a 50-seat RJ, or they get left in the dust with the industry consolidation and shrinking of markets. So as a state, by and large, we've got to figure out a way to reduce the leakage that we're seeing to out-of-state airports, maintain it here in Wyoming, and then ultimately allow us to grow the capacity and be able to grow into some of these larger airplanes. We've talked about fuel quite a bit, the price of oil. Just to give everybody an idea, again, back in 2004 when this program started, the contracts for fuel as part of these components were less than $1 a gallon. A lot of the contracts that we see today are pricing ranging anywhere from $3.50 to $4 a gallon. So again, it's a significant challenge that we know is happening, and we know is simply not going to go away, and it's something that we've got to deal with. And the example we always use is we talk about Casper. Casper today has 50-seat RJs to Denver. If you take today's schedule, or you take their schedule and put the pricing on it from 2003, the fuel for Casper would have cost United Airlines just less than $1 million just to fly Casper Denver back in 2003. if you fast forward to what we're seeing today, that number goes from 900,000 to 3.3 million. And based on Casper's current average fare, that equates to needing an additional 16,000 passengers on an annual basis to do nothing other than pay for fuel, or roughly nine passengers a flight. So again, fuel is something that we're constantly watching, constantly aware of, because it's really driving a lot of our economics. If you look at Wyoming, same story. If you take Wyoming's flight schedule and you look at what we've done as a state over the last 12 months, you apply that to pricing in 2003, our fuel cost was about 11.5 million. But in reality, what we pay today was about 36.7. So just in 1 year alone, our fuel expense is $25 million higher than the program ever envisioned, or that anybody ever intended. And again, it's getting combated by the ancillary fees. It's a reduction in capacity. It's increases in fares. It's all those kinds of things. So these are real challenges that we face as a state, looking down the path of where to next. My last couple of slides, I talked earlier about some of the costs. On the Brasilia, these are directly from SkyWest. So in 2003, from 2003 to 2012, the SkyWest Brasilias, their costs have gone up 66%. That is not all based on fuel. It's based on both fuel and their block hour expense. If you look at the 50-seat RJs, that too has gone up, and that's gone up by 89%. So again, go back to the days when Casper Denver was a 50-seat RJ, and it was a little over an hour flight. It was a cost of less than $2,000 to today. That same flight is pushing $3,500. Just dramatic changes to the overall economics and some of the kinds of things we're seeing. And I think I have just 3 slides left, and really just want to show you the changing landscape of the airplanes flying in the state. So in August 2003, there were 300 nonstop destinations provided by the Beechcraft 1900. And today, or just this past August, that dropped to 88. Again, dramatic changes in where those airplanes are being deployed. The Brasilia, or the Saab 340, went from 282 nonstop destinations down to 100. And this last slide, I think personally is really pretty profound. If you look at the capacity that was flown in August of 2003 on either the 19-seat Beechcraft, the 30-seat Brasilia, or the 34-seat Saab, there were 915 nonstop destinations. If you look at that 10 years later, there are only 517. There are 400 either communities and or routes that have been eliminated simply because of this airplane and the changing economics of flying it. Now there are some markets that have graduated into larger equipment, and they're still represented on this slide, but you can see where that capacity is going away from. It's going away from out west, where we're losing it. The Northeast and Ohio River Valley, that still has similar capacity on this airplane as it always did, but really over the course of this time, 400 nonstop markets that have simply vanished. And again, this is going to continue. We know as a state that we have to find a way to graduate into a bigger airplane, and these are the kinds of things that we stare at every day. Now, I still have Dennis's name on here. Dennis apologizes he couldn't be on the call tonight. Dennis is the administrator of the Aeronautics Division at FYDOT, and like I said, Sherry, who joined us Monday, has called in to listen. But at that point, I'll turn it back over to you guys. If there are questions that I can help you answer, if there are things you want to talk through, or slides you want me to go back to, let me know, and I'll open it up to you guys for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Engler. Are there any questions that the council has at this time? It was a pretty bleak presentation that you've given to us in terms of the numbers and everything. It's tough. It's tough. Do you have any directions that you could give us from your perspective?
Well, let me figure out the best way to answer that. First of all, in talking with Bill in the past, or even with Paul, it does sound as if Riverton has possibly had some misconceptions on the program, and I can see how those misconceptions would be formed, kind of looking from the outside in. Comments that have been made were, we had air service, we decided to take advantage of the air service enhancement program, we got somebody else to show up, our incumbent carrier left, so now we're back to having only one airline, except now we're having to pay for it. Let me just talk through really a couple of pieces that have happened. So first of all, as far as today, who actively participating in the program, Gillette actively participates in the program with Delta service to Salt Lake City, as does Rock Springs. Cody had historically been in the program, and it looks like they'll now not need the help of it anymore, because some of the stuff has been turned back over to Essential Air Service, which is good from the state standpoint because it has freed up a little bit of money. And actually is working out quite nicely in the benefit to Cody, because Cody is talking with United Airlines about offering some additional destinations this summer, which they've never had before. And the last participant, the active participant in the program today, is Jackson. I will say that the approved budget from a biennium was $3 million, and as I understand it, today still stands at that number. I know there's been some discussion amongst legislators in the governor's office about increasing funding. I don't believe that has been finalized yet. But the challenge that we face and the challenge that the program faces is there's really not a whole lot of money for anything else today. And that's certainly not suggesting that it's not going to change in the future. I do know from conversations that I've had with Bill in the past, you guys had indicated some desire in looking at Salt Lake. I can tell you from the firsthand experience of what I've seen with Gillette and Rock Springs that it takes a long time to build a market. What Gillette is carrying today on an annualized basis is nearly twice as much as what they carried the first year with SkyWest to Salt Lake. So it's taken them 5+ years to grow the market. They continue to need the help of the program to fund the flying, not so much because the market doesn't work, but to combat this. What's happening is every year Gillette or Rock Springs, for that matter, do better from a revenue standpoint. But just as soon as we get excited about how well we've done, we find out that the costs have gone up again. So it's something that we're constantly facing, we're constantly challenged with. And to answer your question more directly, I can certainly point to the success that Laramie has had in terms of switching partners, and that may have had nothing to do with switching partners. It may have had to do with the changes in airfares and things like that. And I know you guys have certainly gone through some irregular operations and those kinds of things lately, but the fact of the matter of the reality we're facing is we as a state have to find a way to continue to grow and to continue to grow our air service, or at some point in time there simply isn't going to be an airplane to fly what we have, fly what we want. So I know that doesn't answer your question, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm tap dancing a little bit, because I don't necessarily know the best answer for you. But I put the ball back in your court and ask that you guys, really kind of decide what it is that you want. I mean, is it an improvement in the service you have today to Denver? Is it, we really want to get service to a second hub? I mean, those are some fundamental questions that I think, Riverton and you guys need to answer. And maybe you haven't. Maybe I simply don't know what those are yet, but. There are certainly options out there, but it's just a matter of going after some of those options and kind of rolling up your sleeves and figuring out what kinds of things we can do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Griven, do you have any comments or anything you'd like to make or questions?
Thank you, Nick, for the presentation. If you would, Nick, can you
I can barely hear that question. It's getting cut out a little bit. My apologies. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, Nick, this is Paul. Can you kind of explain what the communities have to do, to be a part of this program?
Yeah. Honestly, Paul, fill out an application. I mean, it does boil down to something as simple as that. Now, I will tell you, as I said a minute ago, there's, right now the funding is pretty tight. I guess the first thing that I would encourage you to do, and we have been encouraging communities to do, Sheridan is a good example. Is we were visiting them. We visited them several times now, most recently this past summer, where we're encouraging them to set up an air service task force, where the community leaders get together and have these discussions. And part of it, Paul, is going to be around a discussion of raising money. The way the program has worked is there is a local match to whatever the state is able to provide through the Air Service Enhancement Program. The way the agreements typically work with the carriers is the community and the state are actively involved in negotiating the service you want. You want service from, I'll use Salt Lake City, for example. If you guys are looking for Salt Lake City service, what we've done in the past is SkyWest is really the most ideal candidate, and I can explain why, but that's a whole other story. But ideally, we've worked with SkyWest in Salt Lake City. They've gone in and they say, okay, we can fly it. This is what we believe our costs are going to be. This is what we believe the revenue in the market will be. And we need you, the state and or the community, to make up the difference. And that's how these arrangements have worked. Now, what happens is if they say the cost is $2 million and the revenue is $1 million, you guys need to guarantee the other $1 million. The benefit that we've seen in the state is if our revenues come in at $1.3 million, well, then instead of guaranteeing the whole $1 million, we're only guaranteeing $700,000. So what we've seen, thankfully, over the past couple of years is the contracts we've been signing, there have been reversions back into the Air Service Enhancement Program account, as well as reversions back to the individual communities. But the first best step, Paul, would be for you guys to get together and have discussions on this and really decide what do we want to do? How do we want to improve air service in Riverton and start with that? And I know Commissioner Vincent is in your guys' neck of the woods, as is Commissioner Diltz. Reach out to those guys and have some conversations with them too. I think they could probably give you some similar feedback, but help point you in the direction. And obviously, myself and Sherry and Dennis are here at your disposal to work with as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, appreciate it. We actually have Mr. Jerry Diltz in the audience tonight. We have Commissioner Allen. We have most of our airport board. So we just really appreciate your time and informing us.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I was going to ask Nick. Nick, what's the average cost a community is paying for a different air service? Obviously, with Great Lakes that we have right now, we don't pay anything for them to be here. If we invited another airlines in, what can we expect in ways of cost?
It depends on what you want. I can tell you that Jackson, for example. I don't know what their contracts are with United, but I can tell you that the state pays. I guess I can't tell you that because I don't remember what the exact number was, but I can tell you Cody historically had paid for United service from the 1st of October to the 31st of May, and that number was generally around $500,000 that was guaranteed with United, again, which was divided between the state and Cody Yellowstone, their air service group. This past season, we used it, and I think the final bill that we got from United came in at less than $200,000, and that was what was split between the state and the community. But it really differs depending on what you're looking for. I mean, Cody's was guaranteeing 1 flight a day. Gillette and Rock Springs are guaranteeing 2 flights a day to Salt Lake City. Honestly, there's really too many variables involved because it's a matter of, what's the destination and depending on how far you are from that destination drives the cost and what's the revenue going to look like, those kinds of things. But I would say a good safe bet, a good safe place to start is you're looking at probably at least $1 million on an annualized basis.
Okay. Yes, Jim, would you like to come up on behalf of the airport board? I could see you back there fidgeting, so
Well, I have just a couple comments. Number one.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Jim Matson, Chairman of the Riverton Regional Airport Board. I would like to have you address the fact that Cody, Gillette, and also Rock Springs get a big subsidy from the state of Wyoming. Riverton right now is profitable. Great Lakes is profitable. They're not an essential air service, and that's kind of the bellwether to determine whether you're profitable or not. So we are profitable. Now, we could probably entice SkyWest to come in here, but we're going to have to give up something. For example, I also know that Cody at the present time has twice our boardings and is on the essential air service. How that happens, I'll never know. It's the fact that they have twice as many boardings as we are and are not profitable. We're profitable with half of what they do. So I guess I'd like to have you address how we fight that, and would we like to have a regional jet? Of course we would. Would we like to have some other type of aircraft? Yes, we would. But as I understand, new aircraft and to replace the ones we have are somewhere between $10 and $25 million to replace them. So I don't know how you do that and still stay viable. So if you could address some of those issues for me, you'd help me a lot.
Okay, thank you, Jim. This is the first time I've heard anyone describe the airport as being profitable. It's always been a black hole, I think, in our budget. So, do you have any comments on that, Nick?
Well, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that I can address, and I'd ask Commissioner Dill perhaps to weigh in on this after I'm done, because I know he recently relocated from Gillette. I believe it was in 2008 that Jay Lindell and Gary Valentine got together and talked about sharing the cost of flights to Salt Lake City. They had Denver service. They had Denver service on Great Lakes, and I would have to say, because I simply don't know that it was doing well. At the time, Rock Springs, if memory serves me correctly, was still an essential air service market. Gillette never was. However, both of them had service to Denver. Their desire was basically to get a second destination, to grow their airports, to grow their communities. Now, what happened over time was the day that Delta and SkyWest announced the service to Salt Lake, it was within a matter of 3 weeks where United Airlines, kind of out of nowhere, announced service from Denver to both of those communities. So all of a sudden you went, overnight capacity in both of these markets tripled. Great Lakes stayed there, but then now you had SkyWest, or actually I think at the time you had Mesa operating into both Gillette and Rock Springs from Denver, and you also had SkyWest operating in Salt Lake City. The community's intent and the community's desire was again to add a second destination. What happened over time was the state and the communities never financially supported the Denver piece. It was always a support of the Salt Lake City component. What happened over time from the community standpoint, I'll take Gillette for an example. Gillette over the last several years has seen some of the lowest airfares the community's probably ever seen in their history. The group that we gave the discussion to on Friday in Casper, one of the ladies on the panel was from Gillette, and she made some pretty nice comments about how affordable it was to fly out of there compared to Rapid City and even Denver. So the nice thing about adding the second carrier in, yes, it costs the community some money, sure, and it still does today. However, having that second destination and having that second airline in their airport has allowed them to work with United and work with Delta on lowering airfares. And the beauty of it is once we got one of the airlines to do it, they both did it because they both wanted to be competitive and they both wanted to match themselves. There were some discussions about Cody, and Cody's a little bit different, but let me explain to you what happened. I don't know the exact, and actually before I go on, Commissioner Dilts, I don't know if you want to comment on just some of the things you've seen in Gillette, living there, and the kind of comments you heard, just to provide a little context to the group.
Doing fine, Ed.
Can you come up to the microphone, please, Mr. Gilpin? Thank you. State your name for the record.
This is Jerry Diltz. You're doing fine, Ed. Keep going.
So with the Cody thing, so here's what happened. So there are certain markets that Delta and United will fly on their own, and they're taking the risk for them. So what they're doing is they're paying SkyWest to fly that market for them. They get all of the benefits of the profit and loss. SkyWest gets none of it. What happened in Cody is Cody at the very beginning of this program wanted to have better air service. So one of the things they went after is they went after regional jets. Long story short, they were successful in getting regional jets. They got regional jets in Denver, but when they did that, it started hurting the Salt Lake City market. Delta went to SkyWest and said, "We no longer want Salt Lake City. Do you guys want it?" And SkyWest said, "Sure, we'll take it." So what happened was the Delta brand never went away in Cody. It was simply a transfer of power, if you will. So instead of Delta being responsible for the profit and loss of the market, it became SkyWest, and SkyWest still had the benefit of the Delta name and everything else that comes with it in serving the market. A couple of years ago, what SkyWest was seeing was during the winter, they weren't making money. So at the time, Cody was still eligible for the Essential Air Service program, and what SkyWest saw is they saw, well, every winter, United was getting compensated to have the RJ in Denver through the Wyoming Air Service Enhancement program. So what SkyWest opted to do was file with the DOT that they were going to leave. They were going to leave the market. That set off a chain of events that the DOT said, no, you can't. This is an essential air service market that requires at least 2 flights a day. And SkyWest said, okay, well, let us bid on it. So SkyWest bid on it. And I want to say, if I remember right, the cost to maintain what they had was only a couple $100,000 a year for EAS. What happened this year was just due to a lot of the budget constraints that the Air Service Enhancement Program has, and really some similar constraints with Cody, they got to a point where they had started having some discussions with United and said, we're not sure we can continue to fund this. Well, long story short, United filed to leave, and the DOT said, no, you can't, and they put both Denver and Salt Lake out for bid, which as of today is still out for bids. SkyWest has bid on it to Salt Lake. United has bid on it to Denver. And what's going to hopefully happen is those 2 airlines will be awarded the service, and we will maintain that service. Maintain that service as it is, without the state having to pay for it. The reason Cody does better from an employment standpoint really is there's a couple of reasons. Back in earlier in my presentation, I talked about how we went and talked to the carriers in 2008 about changing pricing. In 2008, there was a group of us along with Bob Hooper from the airport and James Klessens and Senator Coe, who went and paid a visit to Cody, went and paid a visit to United. And the sales pitch at the time was, hey, United, Cody is losing 2/3 of our customers to Billings. But, oh, by the way, when they get there, they're not getting on you, they're getting on Frontier and at the time Northwest and Alaska Airlines and everything else. We'd like you to look at your pricing structure and make it so it's just as affordable to fly from Cody as it is Billings. In 2008, Cody paid north of $1 million for the winter service on United. Fast forward to this past season, that number was less than 200,000, and Cody is now today retaining 2/3 of their customers and sending less than 1/3 of them to Billings. So each community is unique in their own respective ways. Nobody has used this program to kick anybody out per se. Unfortunately, it may look like that happened in a couple of cases, and that certainly wasn't ever the intent. The intent was always to improve air service. And again, by getting that second carrier and that second hub, that certainly afforded some nice ability to work with the airlines on fares and those kinds of things. I don't know how well that does in answering your question, but that's kind of the background on what's happened with a couple of these other markets.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I need to ask Nick, can you hear me?
Yes.
How would if Riverton wanted to go to Salt Lake City, how would that work? How would the process work? Can you explain it to the people here?
Sure. Well, my guess is Paul has not had a whole lot of opportunity to meet the folks at SkyWest or know who they are. So what would happen is again, myself and Dennis and Sherry would work with him on that and start the conversations with SkyWest. And by the way, just because we're talking about it, I'll answer the question that hasn't been asked. Why SkyWest to Salt Lake City? If you look at who is flying in Salt Lake City, Delta is hands down the biggest carrier there, offers the most destinations, the most seats, everything else. If you're going to fly there, you're going to want to fly there with a carrier that can give you connections to Los Angeles and San Francisco and Vegas and Phoenix and Seattle and those kinds of things, that has the right equipment that can get into Riverton. Southwest is there, and they're a pretty big player as well, but you're probably not going to be successful in convincing them to fly their 737s to Riverton. So SkyWest becomes the only guy we can use. And again, go back 10 years, we were simply dealing with half the guys today that we had. So they're the last man standing. But what we would do is we would have conversations with SkyWest and ask them to take a look at it. They would probably run some numbers, and we'd have to tell them, do we want one flight a day? Do we want 2 flights a day? Do we want one of them to be an overnight? There's some things they would want to know. They'd run some numbers, come back to us and say, okay, we can do this, and we think the cost would be X. And we think that if this is something you guys really wanted to do, that we could probably start it for you in, August of 2014 or something. I mean, they generally give us a number, and then they give us, when are you looking to start it? But that's, I hate to say it's as simple as that, but it really is as simple as that, because then it gives everybody an idea of what kind of costs you're looking at. But that is generally in the past how we've started those conversations.
Okay. Would Commissioners Allen or Commissioner Kessler have any comments? Or we appreciate your coming this evening. This is an important issue to our entire county, not just to the city of Riverton. And so if you have any observations, we'd certainly enjoy hearing from you. Can you step up to the microphone, please, and identify yourself for the record? Thank you.
Before I knock this over. This is Larry Allen. I would like to take the gentleman's comments and maybe form a task force to see what we could do, what our options are. Might include Ms. Kessler if she's interested too. I myself would be interested, and members of the airport board too, if they're interested. But I think maybe we ought to follow through with something like that too.
Yes, I thought that was an excellent suggestion. Yes, thank you. Any other comments council has? Okay. Yes. Mr. Thurston or Jim Matson.
I'm Jim Matson with the airport board again. I'm still curious about one thing. The state of Wyoming has an air enhancement program. Both or all three, Cody, Gillette, and Rock Springs are participating in that. We participated in it in the first year that it came about. It must have been almost 10 years ago. And within a year, we were going to be off that. And Great Lakes at that point in time had to be profitable, which they were. And they have been ever since. You know, you hate to kick out somebody that's been profitable, and they have their issues from time to time with reliability and cancellations and so forth. But you hate to see something like that kicked out if we decided we wanted to go the revenue enhancement from the state. Now, all three of those communities get in excess of $500,000 or $750,000 from that program. We've chosen not to do it because we're still profitable, and we haven't really pursued anybody else because we didn't want to go through all that process. But can somebody tell me that I thought that was a seed money program, not a continuing program like it has been. So I don't know if you know anything about it or not, Mr. Wanger, but enlighten me if you do.
The enlightenment is going to have to come from someone else because I certainly can't answer that, Jim.
I'll answer that. Jerry Diltz, again, Aeronautics Commission. Dennis Byrne has said that you have to pay to play. Wyoming's small population, and you have to enhance the airlines to stay here. It is not going away. It's going to be here probably forever. We've asked for some more money. The governor's approved it, and then to keep funding what we have. Something's going to be here because mostly our small population, and you know, the flights, they could care less about Wyoming if we didn't push them. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, and Commissioner Dilton, and a couple of things that I'd add to that, and I know this is something that Dennis says when we have these kinds of meetings. In June, this past June, there was an Air Service Development Conference, a nationwide Air Service Development Conference in Atlanta, and one of the speakers was the president and CEO of Delta Airlines. One of the comments that he made was, you know, Delta is not going to grow, and basically we're not going to grow unless you pay us to show up. And we're seeing that from everybody. So that is one of the ways the industry has changed. The airlines are not willing to take a risk on a market and have it not be successful. To speak to the point of the earlier question of, you know, we thought this was, you know, was seed money, and why are they still using it? They're still using it because the costs that we originally envisioned and we originally saw, you know, we viewed it as a short-term program. We viewed it as something that we could use to help somebody get going and then within a few years wind down where it was self-sustaining. The way the costs have escalated, that is not an option. And to what Commissioner Dill said, due to the population size of Wyoming, we simply lack the people that the captive audience to improve this stuff quicker. I can tell you that everything that we've done has been very slow and very methodical, but year in, year out, it grows. There's more passengers and there's more revenue than there were the same month last year. But it unfortunately just takes some time, and we're competing with rising costs at the same time.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time this evening. We've got a couple other issues that we got to get through this evening as well, so unless there's any questions that the council has or anything, maybe we better move on. So, okay, thank you very much, Nick, for your time this evening.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank everybody for your time as well, and certainly you know how to reach out to us and find us. We'd be more than happy to help you, and we'd be more than happy to continue discussions. So just let us know how we can help.
You bet. Well, you've made some excellent suggestions this evening, and I'm sure we'll be moving forward with them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. We're now moving to agenda item 10.5, I guess it would be. Ordinance number 13-011. Would Mr. Weaver care to give us a brief overview of this ordinance? Sure. And how we got here? And
sure, Honor. Let me just pull it up here. So the council, we presented this on first reading 2 weeks ago to the council, and it passed on first reading without any amendments. That we had quite a bit of discussion related to the city attorney, had some suggestions that we added to the staff report for this particular meeting. He suggested that we added the definition of what a commercial sales would be, which is soliciting orders for the sale of goods, wares, and merchandise, books, pictures, or periodicals, or for the sale of such goods for stock. They also the other suggestion that we added or thought you should contemplate is the issue of door hangers. I know that's been a topic of discussion for myself, and others have brought that up. Is that solicitation? I guess in my mind, door hangers are not solicitation because you're not actually talking with someone, and you're simply putting it on their door and asking them if they want it. They can call you. But I thought we should clarify that in the ordinance if we want to continue on with that, because that's going to be the first question. People are going to come out and say, well, can I put a door hanger? And there's really no definition of that. So it'd be nice to get some clarification. So that's where it's at right now. And I think
okay.
I think Lars has got some additional.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weaver. Appreciate it. Is there any, the chair would entertain a motion at this time to approve ordinance number 13-011.
Your Honor, I move that we approve ordinance number 13-011 on second reading.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Baker.
I've really thought about this quite a little bit, and I think we need to simplify it, and so I suggest that we strike all the language. I've passed around substitute language, which would read, so it would read section 5.28 door-to-door solicitation. It shall be unlawful for any person to enter upon the premises of another with the intent to sell merchandise, either from stock or by order, when such property is posted with a sign prohibiting solicitation. This section shall not apply if entry is made by prior appointment or a contractual relationship between the person and the owner exists which allows for entry. And then and so I passed that around. You've got all that on the table, and then I've added to that, or to the use of door hangers as a means of communication. I think if we go with something like that, Your Honor, that will address the issue. It gets away from the registration of salesmen, which would be an administrative burden for the city. It clearly places the responsibility on the homeowner to post his property with a sign if they don't want solicitation. Other than that, people would be free to knock on the door. Okay. It covers would cover the city, cover city employees or utility company employees who already have contracts with the homeowner to provide those utility services. Then the no solicitation wouldn't apply under those circumstances, and so I think this language or something very similar to it would solve our problem. It would give us, we would do something about door-to-door solicitation. We would give homeowners a solution to the problem, and yet it wouldn't be a complicated piece of legislation.
Okay. As I understand the amendments you're proposing, you would strike out all the language with the exception of this, is that?
That's correct. So all sections A, B, C, D through I, we would simply strike that, okay, and substitute in place of that the language that I just presented. And that's my motion, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Yes.
I would like to get the chief's opinion on that.
Chief Broadhead.
I think it's workable. I know that we've had pretty long discussion about the benefits or not of registration, but that certainly gives us other tools. I think that this is a pretty good compromise to give us a tool to address, at least it's something that we can tell the public, here's a way you can protect yourself or your family members, from these kinds of overly aggressive salespeople. So, I think from my perspective, it's a compromise, but it's certainly workable.
Thank you.
Okay.
One other question, and this would exclude the nonprofits, correct? So if you have no solicitation, that includes everyone, just no one's on the property, correct?
I would think that's correct. Is this,
No.
if I'm understanding
Your Honor?
Yes.
That's been a problem for me. I've thought about that a great deal. To be honest with you, if somebody doesn't want to be solicited, they don't want to be solicited by the Boy Scouts either. Okay, to buy popcorn.
All right.
Okay, and so, but the way this would work is it's not going to be regulated by the police department following people around to see which doors they knock on. This will be regulated by people calling the police department to complain about someone who's knocking on their door in spite of the fact they have a no solicitation sign. And so if the homeowner is not concerned about the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts selling cookies, then they are not going to make the telephone call.
Your Honor, I also want to just bring up, they do have some fairly fancy signs that you can buy. I don't know if you've seen them, where they say, no solicitation for, if you're here to sell vacuums, we're not interested. If you're here to sell me cookies, I am. And I guess there's some modifications that you wouldn't have to address in here, but the homeowner would have that option because it would be clearly posted.
Your Honor, so what would the penalty be if somebody shows up to my door and is aggressive or whatever, and they knock on my door and I don't want them to?
Yes, Chief.
Councilman, it would just be a typical, every city violation is the same unless it's specifically designated as some other. It would be the same as ordinance violation.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments at this time?
Your Honor, I would, I guess, just echo what Stephen brought up. I'm looking at one right now on eBay for $9.95 that's very tasteful, and just, it looks like it fits right in with the decor. Just says no soliciting, and then right under it says thank you. So, I mean, you don't have to get a loud, obnoxious neon orange sign like the ones that say no trespassing. I mean, folks can make it very tasteful if that's what they desire. They can certainly hang the big orange neon sign out too if they feel that gets the message across better. But this one, the way they're showing it, comes in a variety of different colors and is meant to be posted right above the doorbell, which is probably a really good place for that to be. So I would just echo Mr. Weaver's sentiment there that it's not a huge burden to ask the residents to put that on their home if they don't want soliciting, and it doesn't have to look terrible either. So.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Guard.
I think this is a real positive step, because those people that do have legitimate good reasons for not being solicited, they're asleep during the day, or they don't want to be disturbed, they just don't want to be disturbed, they have that option. And yet people need to know that they have the responsibility to post that property. And, you know, Chief and I, what was it, the day after our last discussion, had a discussion with a door-to-door salesman in City Hall that was marketing City Hall rather well, I might add. And we had a long discussion with him, and the ordinance as it is extremely difficult to describe aggressive, violent. You know, those are rude, aren't criminal terms that the chief can work with. And so we've got to get back to a point where people take the responsibility at their door to what happens there. And we do have trespassing ordinance already on the books, and so I think it's really important that we get this information out, and for those individuals that really don't feel like they want to deal with salesmen, they need to post this and keep those salesmen off their front porch. And I think it's a good idea. I do see three members in the audience that sat through a long meeting. Do you guys want to add anything to this? Does this take care of your concerns? These gentlemen are with Rocky Mountain Power.
Your Honor, members of the council, thank you for
Can you state your name
the
for the
opportunity.
record?
Yes, my name is Larry Elcock. I'm with Rocky Mountain Power.
Thank you.
Customer and Community Manager. After the last presentation, I had an idea that maybe we'd want to sell airline tickets door to door. Would that work? No, I think that we've been struggling with this since it passed on first reading. Back and forth, the question was, will the scope of the ordinance encompass notifications that we're in many cases required to give for certain circumstances associated with the service we provide. In other cases, it's more of a courtesy notification that we provide. In those cases, it's personal. It's at the location of the service. And as we read the ordinance as it was written, one minute we were comfortable it didn't apply to us. The next minute we saw gray areas where we weren't sure. We think that this amendment will take care of our concerns, but we were just asking if maybe it could be read again.
Councilman Baker.
The way I propose, it shall be unlawful for any person to enter upon the premises of another with the intent to sell merchandise either from stock or by order when such property is posted with a sign prohibiting solicitation. This section shall not apply if entry is made by prior appointment or a contractual relationship between the person and the owner exists which allows for entry, or the use of door hangers as a means of communication.
We think that's good, and where we were getting comfortable even with the past ordinance was we don't sell when we're providing these notifications. We don't collect. We have a policy that's somewhat new, that we don't want our people taking money because then they could become a target. And we don't solicit. In our own interpretation, we don't solicit when we leave notice, encouraging customers to get in contact with us or making them aware of something that we need to do or that they need to do. But this takes care of the issue for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your Honor, Mr. Weaver, do you believe that the contractual agreements covers the city if we were doing water shut-offs?
I do, Your Honor, because they sign off on contracts.
And how about our other utilities? It should cover them, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point, that if we don't take care of that and give them a clause to be able to enter those premises, even though they're posted, lots of times we post stuff because we want to keep these guys away. But they have to be able to turn off their utilities and services when there's non-payment. So I think that it puts it back where we need it to be, as we were trying to point out 2 weeks ago, on the homeowner and their responsibility to post their premises and to take care of their own front door. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Is there any other comments? I'd just like to comment that it seems to me like by taking this action, then we're completely defeating what the original intent of the proposed ordinance was for. And from my perspective, it was so that our police department would know who's in our community selling products, what they're here for, and to provide a little bit of protection for our citizens, mainly the senior citizens and whatnot that are vulnerable to this type of thing. I don't disagree that it's the property owner's responsibility to place a no solicitation sign on their home. They've always had that ability. And if they place a no solicitation sign on their home and someone comes and solicits, they've always had the opportunity to call the PD and register that kind of complaint. They don't need this ordinance. Okay, so by basically taking away the permitting side of it, or we're it seems to me like back to square one again, with a little bit of an enhancement, but it's such an innocuous improvement over our existing code that I can certainly live with this, but I don't. It doesn't, I guess, satisfy my original intent, which was to try to help our people know that the city knows who's in our community and what they're doing, and with a name and an address, and if they do get out of line with a little bit of teeth in it. And by taking this out, why, it's, to me, it's going back to what we have right now with just a little bit of a help. But I can, I guess the other side of it is I haven't received a hue and cry from any of the community that this is something that they're desperately in need of one way or the other. So I can, I guess as Mayor Eichler used to say, it's the will of the council. So whatever we choose to go with. But that being said,
Your Honor.
Yes.
I might address that idea,
Okay.
and that is that it seems not unreasonable to me that the city of Riverton should have some kind of a transient merchant's license, which would apply not only to door-to-door salesmen, but to the guys that set up in parking lots and that type of thing as well. And so,
and that might be an extension that we could
the
look at.
scope of a transient's a transient merchant license would go beyond just the door-to-door sales. And so that's kind of why I went that direction, because I know that there has been discussion about dealing with other transient merchants with some kind of an identification system, and so it may be appropriate for us to consider that at another time.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor at this time regarding the amendment to ordinance 13-011. All those in favor of the amendment as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mayor votes aye. So, motion carries.
And Your Honor, point of order, I think we also need to vote on second reading now. Is that correct?
Okay, as amended. Okay. The chair would entertain a motion on second reading.
Do we need another?
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay, just need a vote.
Okay. All those in favor of the ordinance 13-011 as presented and amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Okay, and at this time we're getting to the highlight of the evening, presentation to outgoing elected official Councilman Heiser. And I'd like to ask that Councilman Heiser and Councilman Baker, if you would step down in front for a moment. Thank you. The reason that I've asked Councilman Baker to come down at this time as well is that he has served on the council longer than any of the other councilmen with Councilman Heiser. And I know you guys have been through thick and thin. Some of the stories I hear, you know, when we were going through the Main Street rebuild and all of the stuff that was going on there was kind of wild. And I know that in the 3 years that I've served with Eric, it's been a great honor, and you just bring a professional responsibility to the office that I've just found very reassuring, and we're going to miss you a great deal, Councilman Heiser, you bet, and good luck in your new job. And what I would like to do is ask Councilman Baker if he would present the traditional going away present to Councilman Heiser. Steamboat. Yeah. You will be missed, Eric. We really will. Okay, council committee reports and council members roundtable. Councilman Smith, would you lead us, please?
Nothing further tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilman Guard?
Your Honor, I had the opportunity to go to prevention's meeting on the point setting system, and Chief sent Captain Murphy and to that meeting, and it was a good meeting. It only lasted only an hour, and there was quite a few bar owners in attendance that were feeling like the point system was out to get them, and I don't think that's what our intent is here. And so I might need to apologize to the chief, but there was some data that was suggested that we could maybe target and look at in the next 30 days or such to see if it really is a help to the city or not. And there are a number of large municipalities that have accepted this, but the chief was there last month and pointed out that most of the things that are on this point system are already current violations. And so the reality of it is, if we have a violation, we ought to have a citation. And so the thought process there was that Captain Murphy, and I would be willing to help if you need lay help that can pour coffee or something late at night to keep the numbers going. But we need to, they felt like there was a way in the documents and the material that you get to kind of give us some ideas of if this would be a help or not. And I hope Captain Murphy spoke to you about that, and maybe you could enlighten us if you need some additional help there.
Yes, Your Honor, and Councilman, he did speak to me about that. As I expressed a couple of months ago at that meeting, providing the negative numbers is really not an issue. Providing the positive numbers that I think that the liquor owners would like to have in their benefit, that's going to be very difficult for us to produce. You know, I can produce very clear numbers of how many times they sold to underage that we knew about, you know, how many disturbances, those kinds of things. But, you know, the positive things that they do, how many of them are tips trained, how many of them offered cab rides to people, those kinds, there's just no way for us really to track that part of it. So the negative part, we can certainly produce numbers. The other side's a little more difficult.
Thanks, Chief. And if I can be of any help, I tried to defend you in that meeting. And so I think we have a good system in place and good officers. And I think we have, and I think what the prevention group is trying to put together is trying to get a positive, trying to get a positive attitude placed between the police, bar owners, the council, and maybe we're not getting that statement across as clear as we need to, but I think that's the effort that's there. So if we can get some better information, possibly we don't need this point system, or at least we could amend it to where there are some positive ways to get points back to their different locations. Other than that, the chamber had a board meeting and fears that they're good arrangements and they do a wonderful job for the city of Riverton. I'd like to commend Jim and his board. Other than that, I have no other things to add, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Heiser.
Last one. Yeah, I again would echo my thanks to the entire city staff. It's been a great ride, and I can't believe how long it's been, honestly. But yeah, through trial and tribulation, it's been a good time, been a huge learning experience. I would encourage, I really hope that you get a lot of applicants from Ward 1 to take my place here on the council, and then hopefully run again when the term is up in this coming election cycle. The number one way that you can be active in your community is by public service, and it is a truly humbling experience, but probably one of the most rewarding experiences that you can experience. It's kind of two ends of the spectrum. Sometimes you just absolutely dread having to go through things, but when things such as Job Corps and the great things happen, you are, at least I was, incredibly proud to be a part of it. So once again, I want to thank all the citizens that put their trust in me the past 9 or so years, and wish the council best of luck. Wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Christensen.
Your Honor, I have nothing to report. I was on vacation last week, so.
Councilman Baker.
Your Honor, I was honored to honor Eric. Okay, thank you.
I thought it was appropriate. You two have served together for quite a while, and I just thought I really enjoyed my time, and it would have been something I would have been very proud to do. But
we have, and we've enjoyed a nice association on the city council. I have a statement here that I'll read, okay, and pass out a copy to everybody. And there's an original for okay. It says, I find myself in a challenging situation. As has been reported in the press, I am retiring from Fremont County Weed Pest. In preparing for that change in status, I discovered that I will have to resign from the city council. It is related to the fact that both the city of Riverton and Fremont County Weed and Pest are covered by the Wyoming retirement system, and state law stipulates that to retire I must sever all ties with any and all covered entities, and there doesn't seem to be any alternative. We've looked at it from a number of different ways, and it doesn't look like there's any way to get around that. So effective at the close of business this evening, on December 17th, I am resigning my seat. I thought that since being a city councilman is far less than the 86 hours per month that the state retirement system allows for part-time work while being retired, there might be some exception. It seems strange to me that I would be considered an employee when I'm an elected official. However, the law appears to be plain in this regard. It is my intention that in retirement I could better fulfill my council duties. I have enjoyed serving on the council. One opportunity exists for me to continue to serve. If after being separated from the city for a period of 30 days, I could be reappointed by the council to fill out my remaining term without impacting my status with the Wyoming retirement system, I've timed my retirement to possibly allow for my being considered for that appointment. Tonight's meeting is the last regular meeting in December. If the council announced the vacancy at the next regular meeting on January the 7th and advertised for replacements to be considered at the next regular council meeting scheduled January 21st, the required 30-day separation from service would be met, and I would be able to reapply at that time. This assumes two things. First, that the process to fill the vacancy on the council did not involve any special council meetings that could speed the process along, and second, that among the applicants from Ward 3 to fill the vacancy, I would be selected. It is imperative that the process be open in every way and that every person eligible to serve who has a desire to do so is given consideration and the best candidate be selected. That is how I came to serve on the board 7 years ago. I was selected to fill the term of a councilman who had moved from Riverton with his work. 2 years later, I ran for office and was elected, and in 2012, I was reelected. I'd like to complete my term. But once I resign, the process is clear. The selection of a replacement for my vacated seat will be done by the remaining members of the City Council and the Mayor. I'm resigned to accept their decision. If reappointed, I'll continue to do my best to study the issues and vote in the best interest of my constituents. If not reappointed, I will still be happy to offer my time and energy to make Riverton a great place to live. Thank you.
Okay. But we haven't prepared to watch for you, Lars.
That's okay. It's okay. This is Eric's night, and I'm happy.
I agree.
And I'm happy that he's got a great job in Salt Lake and is making a major career move.
Yes, I agree.
That's exciting.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great honor.
I'm just retiring.
Yeah, one of our own down there. So. But thank you for this. That's very clear and concise, and I think it lays it out without any questions and the transparency that we all need. And it is a foolish requirement, I think, of the state, but it is one of the things that you have to comply with, and so will we. So thank you very much for that. That was very clear. Okay, City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Got quite a few things here. First, I'd like to thank Courtney and the Finance Department for their great work for this clean audit. I can always count on good numbers when I ask for them. So I really appreciate all their hard work, and it really is a team effort. They have a great team. They have regular meetings. I hear a lot of laughing, but they also are very serious about their jobs and commitment to that. So I applaud them for that. I did want to comment a little bit on the airport service. I think all of us would like to have a little bit better airport service than what we're getting, but we have to figure out at what cost are we willing to pay for that. Overall, our budget is close to almost $700,000 a year that we put towards the budget. For the airport, and then usually we have an additional about $100,000 in capital. So there's about $800,000 that the city puts forth. The city general fund usually has to transfer about $300,000 a year to keep it sound and in the black. We receive about $95,000 from the county. In order to have enhanced air service or to have an additional airline come in here, we're going to need support of a lot more people. There's no way that the city's going to be able to put that on our backs and take it out of the general fund and add another $400,000 or whatever the amount is. That's why I was trying to get a number out of Nick as to what that number could be. I had heard different ratios of 60-40, but if those really are seed numbers, that could change, and then it'd be on the backs of the city of Riverton for 60%, and that's a huge commitment for the air service, particularly in our general fund that supports a lot of other functions of the city. I'd like to congrats Eric on his new job. We'll miss him greatly. He's done a great job.
Thank you.
I'd like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. With the new year, the mayor will be looking for appointments for the committee assignments. I've sent you an email of all the committees that we have. Please respond in the ones that you're not able to be on because of prior commitments or other obligations, so that when we put that together, we can have something that will work for everybody. And then the last thing was we received an extended or an addendum to the listing contract from Home Source Realty. There are realtors for selling property and for the airport industrial park, and they're asking for an extension for another 2 years to list these properties and try to sell them for the city of Riverton, and I would need a motion for that.
Okay. Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to consider the industrial park listing with Home Source Realty Incorporated.
Your Honor, I'd move to extend the listing for Home Source Realty.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Your Honor, my only concern is the length of time. They chose to ask for 2 years extension.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be better if they applied year to year than 2 years?
And that's fine. I'm sure they would be fine with that.
That would be my only choice, and I think it might open it up for other agencies to apply.
Would you like to make that a motion to amend that?
If I could, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to amend that. I didn't hear a length attached to the motion, a time length attached to the motion. So I don't know.
I did not add that. It would be for 2 years.
Well, it's what's been presented to us, so I think the assumption would be that it's to 15, so I think...
So I would make a motion to make the exception to a 1 year extension.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Amendment? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. Now on the initial motion regarding the Home Source Realty. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The mayor votes aye. So will that take care of that, Stephen?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Did you have anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor's comments. I think obviously the first one is we're going to miss Eric, and now Lars has given us his commentary, so it's quite an interesting meeting this evening. It was a wonderful audit report. I think that was just outstanding, and Courtney and her staff need to be very proud of the work that they're doing for the city. It's a great job. I also would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and holiday season, and the report that we received on the airport, I was happy to see the two county commissioners here. This is something that our airport, while it's a Riverton regional airport, it's really truly a county-wide airport, and I think given the numbers that we're looking at and everything, I think wouldn't be unreasonable for us to approach the county and see if we can't get a little county-wide support to make it happen. For the city to just be carrying that to the extent that Stephen just described out of our general budget, it just isn't something that's fair, or we're probably going to be able to continue to do on into the future. And our airport is just such a critical part of our community and the county that we have to do everything we can to save it. So I appreciate all of the board members from the airport board that attended this evening and demonstrating your interest in the project. Thank you, Dean. So at any rate, it's the last meeting of the year, and it's an interesting one. Enjoyed your time this evening, and I especially enjoy Stephen's bright red hat over there. Every time I look over, I have to smile. So thank you for the good work you're doing up at the airport too, Paul. Good that things are going as well. Okay, are we needing a executive session this evening? I didn't think so. I saw everything, and I was hoping we didn't. But okay, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the evening.
I move we adjourn. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.